Are there any citizens in the audience that would like to address the board? Okay, we got a room full of people, but no one wants to address the board. Okay, committee members, Karen Ryanchek is absent tonight. She is on a business trip. Okay, let's have an approval of the minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, bright lights. We're going to have the Waukesha Academy of Health Professions and Engineering. Jody, do you want to take us into that?
Wonderful. I will. Come on up, everybody, to the table. I'm just actually, who am I introducing? Which administrator from South? They're pointing at one another. I do have administrator for the academy, Steve Fisher is here, and I know Principal Ryan Galante. Thank you for being here as well, representing your school. They're going to give the intro of the teachers that are with you tonight, along with the fabulous students. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. I'm really excited to present two of our outstanding teachers, one from our Engineering Academy and one from our Health Academy. Sitting to my immediate right is Ryan Schrader. He's one of our illustrious Health Academy teachers. Next to him is Annie Weber, one of our awesome engineering teachers. And then we brought two students, and I'm going to let our teachers kick off who they are and what the project was, and then we're going to get over to the kids to
Great.
share what they're doing.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll start off. Actually, Steve just introduced me. I'm Ryan Schrader. I've been in the Health Academy since it started quite a few years ago now. And to my right here is Andy Weber. And us being good friends, and as the academies have grown, we thought we'd probably go to find a way that we can make a connection with our academies. Let's kind of feed off each other's strengths. And with biomedical innovations being a PLTW capstone class and engineering development design being the engineering's capstone class, we got to talking and said, well, wouldn't it be a good idea with the way the curriculum was set up for both classes to have play off the strengths of our academies and have the health students kind of take their role and then piggyback off the expertise of our engineering academy and come up with an emergency room design, which is the first big PLTW biomedical design problem. So instead of us just doing it by ourselves, we thought it would be a nice collaborative partnership to bring the engineering department along and use their tools that they have down there, which are far beyond our expertise, and turn it from a good problem to a great problem and be able to showcase that to you guys tonight. We basically build our design off of kind of four core principles: voice, choice, and pace, and feedback. And this is a big one from community partners. As you guys will see, as our two students will take you through what they did tonight. We had ProHealth, Children's Hospital, Huddy Healthcare Solutions from South Carolina, and Mortensen Construction that were partnerships giving kids feedback on this particular problem. The problem was a 45-year-old individual passes away waiting in an ER, and the whole premise of this particular problem was to then, for our students to pair up. We paired up two biomedical engineering students, biomedical innovation students, health academy students with the two engineering academy students, and their goal was to design and staff a functioning ER to make sure that this particular problem would never happen again and make it a functioning ER. And from our end in the Health Academy, as Beth will talk to tonight, they had certain problems to deal with, and then we had our building design issues we had to deal with the Engineering Academy, and they'll talk to that tonight too.
Is this working? No? Okay, hi. So I'm Beth Allen, and I'm a junior in the Health Academy, and I'm going to talk about the Health Academy end of this project. So basically, we were kind of the dreamers of the whole project. We got to decide what we wanted our ER to look like, and we would collaborate with the engineering students to see what was really feasible and what we could really do with our ER. So that's a model of my ER. We used an arena style, so basically all the desks for the healthcare providers are in the center so that they're easily able to reach all the patient rooms. And we just kind of collaborated to see what really we could build together, brainstorming our ideas. Yeah. So we got to meet face-to-face with some nurses from Pro Healthcare and the Children's Hospital, and we basically got to interview them about staff needs and by time of day and by department and really how we could make our ER more efficient. And we had the nurses also review our ER designs to make any suggestions to make our ER more efficient. So we were also given these 3 patients, and basically we were given these patients to show the effectiveness of our ER. So we had to triage them and treat and diagnose them, and we had to walk them through our ER. It's kind of hard to see, but there's numbers throughout the ER showing their pathway, and it kind of highlights our innovations and how our ER would be efficient and successful.
So my name's Frances. I'm a senior in the Engineering Academy. And so our side of this project was, so she said she was like the dreamer. We were the ones that kind of put the constraints on it because like obviously not everything is possible, what you dream up. So, yeah. So what we did is we'd start and so every person in the group on the engineering side would develop concept sketches according to what the Health Academy students had told us that they wanted to be in the ER. So then what we would do is we would meet, and then we took like ideas from every single concept sketch and kind of combined it into one. And then we met with the people from like Pro Healthcare and like Mortensen Construction, and they helped us determine like how big the rooms had to be, like according to codes, and like the bathrooms, they had to be a certain size, and you had to make sure that like certain things were being done the right way. So you couldn't have a family room that's like out of sight of people working there because of like security issues and things like that. So this was my group's design. So this is using Revit. It's a program we use to do a lot of like buildings and do things like this. So I also use it in my civil engineering class. And something big we wanted to give the patients was privacy with like bathrooms. So we tried to give each room a bathroom, and we had to make it wheelchair accessible, obviously, and make sure they had enough room. But we also wanted to make sure that we weren't using too much space where we didn't need it. So we needed to make sure we were using the space efficiently. And then also another thing we wanted to think about is like the family members. So you don't want to walk through the entire ER just to get to your family member, because there could be other people that are really struggling, and you don't necessarily need to see that because you just have your family member to worry about. So we made waiting rooms also that are easily accessible and seen from the nurses station, which is up in the right-hand corner. And the waiting room is in the left-hand bottom corner. And then, so that way people are easily like able to access their family members, and then also the privacy to the patients because they have their own bathrooms. And we did that with Revit. So, sorry. Something else we used, another program, is Google SketchUp. So these are better views of what the room would be like. So on the left you have what we were thinking would be like a waiting room. And we just use SketchUp for this because it's better at like getting the details down, and there's a lot more options when it comes to the types of desks and chairs you can put in there. And also to the right, then they had like the hospital beds that we needed and stuff like that in that program. So it just does a better job of making sure that we can fully show like what our ideas are and what we wanted to actually accomplish in all of these rooms.
One thing that we try to do here when we do our presentations is like a trade show type presentation, where we don't have just one group going at one time speaking to a large group of people, that the kids have their stations or like a booth set up, and we have our guests and our visitors approaching the kids. So they're giving their presentation maybe 6-7 times throughout like a period of an hour, hour and a half. Everyone's a little bit more engaged instead of hearing presentation after presentation, and it kind of keeps the kids on their toes and allows the people that are hearing the presentation to actually get engaged to the kids' projects with it. So we found out this is a better way to do things, kind of makes the day go a little bit faster, because no one's going to want to sit and listen to 10 presentations in a row. And it seems to keep everybody flowing through, and we get a lot of positive feedback about doing a presentation this way. And then finally, we just like to have, just talk a little bit about our community partners here. Pro Healthcare and Children's Hospital Wisconsin were able to provide the nurses for us. So the Health Academy, and Mr. Schrader can speak for this, they were like talking about like staffing and where certain rooms should go and like equipment and stuff like that. Stuff for the engineering academy, we're really not too concerned about like scheduling and this and that. We're more about, all right, we can build these walls here and do this and do that, but they're kind of the ones saying, all right, it makes sense to put this room over here, and like where the engineers would be like, well, if you put this room over here, you could save a little bit of money or little stuff like that. Mortensen is, I'm sure you guys are aware, they're a major construction company in the area. They're doing the Bucks Arena right now. If you go down to Freight Art or Children's, they're doing most of the construction down there. So they're able to actually provide their marketing team to help the kids with their presentations. They actually have their designers come in. So when the kids have a question on Revit or SketchUp, it's the same software that they're using. So they're not going to me with a question. They're actually emailing one of their employees for feedback, for tips, or whatever they need to get. And finally, Huddy was able to provide us with a phone conversation. The gentleman was actually in the airport. I don't remember where he was, but he was in an airport speaking to us. And essentially what that guy does is he flies around the world and he provides hospitals with, all right, we need to increase our ER, redo our ER, and he's usually the first guy that kind of comes in and says, you could do this or that, so. Any questions for us?
Mr. Baumgartner?
Yes, just to start off with one, did you also have cost parameters that they had to meet?
They could build it wherever they wanted to, so like a rural ER is a lot cheaper than building one like in a city or an urban environment. So we were kind of using like the McGuanago ER. That's a very similar situation to what we did. Morton's did the addition out there,
Right.
so they're kind of able to give us a breakdown on what their cost was, and we figured about $1 million per bed. So that's kind of what the kids stuck to. I know we had one group that built like an urban type ER, and I think they found one out in Los Angeles that was just, it's like a $700 million thing. So one group was way over the top, but we kind of allowed them to decide wherever they wanted to build it, because obviously land's a little bit more expensive out there than it is in McGuanago, so.
So while we didn't have constraints, we did have to budget, so you had to keep track of how expensive it was gonna be to build it. So even though there wasn't like, you have to make sure you're within this box, they did wanna know how expensive it actually would be to build it. So we did have part of that project to do.
Did the two of you, were you part of a team?
We weren't in the same.
You were different teams, but you had the same assignment?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I want to just say, I'm so glad to see this integration. These guys know me and my interest in what they've been doing. But, to bring the two things together, that's important, because in the real world, it's not a bunch of silos. It all comes together, and I appreciate the fact that they've given you the opportunity to see how that works. And having some background in engineering myself, that's the way it works. You work with customers, even though a lot of people think engineers don't want to talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, I was really happy we got to do this because my goal is to do biomedical engineering as a major. So to be able to combine these two classes, or these two, academies was a really cool idea. And like you said, engineers don't always want to be sitting there in the corner and, in a room just designing something. They want to be able to, talk to people about it. So I liked this for that reason.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Tell me how many total students were involved with this project?
Total or
Yeah.
per group?
Overall, how many
Oh, I don't
students?
know that.
I believe 65 total. So I think we ended up with 8 or 9 ERs when we were all said and done, so.
And then do you have future projects planned?
For the Engineering Academy, our middle project is kind of our manufacturing project through our Waukesha Made connections. We partner up with, this year it was 3 different companies, and we had projects that we did with them. And then currently the students are working on their senior design project for me.
It's great. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
How many students are in the Health Academy? Total number of students, do you have any idea? You want to answer that?
178, I'm told.
Wow, that's a lot of kids. And how about the Health Academy?
A little under 200.
Wow. And so the students go into these academies when they're freshmen, is that right?
Yes.
And is there a selection process, or do they just go in because they're interested?
Well, they have an application to fill out, but for the most part, the kind of the career path, or they're interested in the different type of learning style that we're able to provide. So usually they want to be engineers, or they're interested in the learning style that we offer. So
When new students move into the school, can they join your academies even though they haven't been there full time?
yes, we do have some. It gets kind of difficult to join
is,
after like your sophomore year.
I
We-
would
We have
think so.
different graduation requirements than South High School, so it gets a little tough to get caught up.
Right. So, do you spend your entire school day in the area that's called academy?
I am fortunate that I am able to do so. Mr. Schrader does not.
And like the students don't always just stay down there because like all of my core classes are with the rest of the high school.
Yes.
But I have my engineering classes in the engineering like part of the school.
How many engineering classes do you take?
This year I took, let's see, I'm in civil engineering and architecture and engineering development and design,
Wow.
which is what that is. So I took about 2 per year. So like last year I took aerospace and what else did I take? Digital electronics. You were my teacher.
It's usually like a block of the day, so like my second and third hour are my health academy hours, or like
Okay.
last year it was 7 and 8.
Okay. And what have you learned about the students that graduated and went on? Do they stay in the field of engineering and/or health professions? What do you know about that?
I know that like I feel like if you go through the engineering academy through high school, you know whether or not you want to be in the engineering field. And kids that go from the engineering academy and then go into engineering majors stay there. But the kids that go through it and realize they don't really want to be an engineer of any sorts go off and do a different major. But I haven't heard many people that go into like the engineering majors and then switch after that because they've already had so much exposure that they should have been able to figure it out by the time they're seniors.
Right. But this program, both of these programs start in the freshman year, right? Eighth grade. Okay.
Like the first class we ever take is health career exploration, so you learn all these different pathways you can take, and I find that most kids still.
Right. Do district teachers provide you with instruction, or are there outside people? Who provides you with instruction? Okay, so teachers from South?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All
Yeah,
right,
so we have a few like teachers. So I've had Mr. Weber and Mr. Schmidt for most of my engineering classes, just because they're the ones that teach them. So I've had him a few years, and I've had Mr. Schmidt, the other engineering teacher, for a couple years too.
wow. Okay, anything else? I'm just so excited to have you come here tonight because, you know, I've never visited, and I'd like to come over and visit if I can, but I just think it's so wonderful what South High School is doing for your future by offering health and engineering. It's just phenomenal. If you go around and look at high schools in the area, this isn't going on. So this is very unique to Waukesha, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. So, well, I'm proud of you kids. You kind of know what you're going to do, you know? So, good luck. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have one presentation, one action, and one information item, and one discussion item. So let's begin with the presentation item. Would you like to introduce that, please, Jody?
Yep, I have Melissa Yao here, and thank you, Wendy, for being here. Melissa's going to start off, and then they'll take you into the presentation.
Hi, I'd like to introduce Wendy Hamilton, who's one of our title reading interventionists and also our CIM coach for the district. And CIM means Comprehensive Intervention Model. So it is our intervention strand for literacy that, as you will learn tonight, complements our CLM model, which is our base instruction for literacy in the district. So Wendy is going to take it away.
Boardroom 3. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm really excited to be here. As Melissa said, I'm Wendy. I work right now at Hawthorne Elementary School for part of my time as a reading teacher there. I've been with the district for over 20 years, so I've been around. And I've had many hats in this district. So this for me is a really exciting adventure we're on with the literacy programming that's going on with the CLM and now the CIM. And so I'm just going to kind of share a little bit. I could sit and talk for 3 hours, but I was told I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and really be brief, which is, anyone that knows me knows is really hard to do. So here we go. I thought just take a second to share our journey so far with CIM. You can see that it started with the CLM that Melissa referenced, our core universal instruction, the comprehensive literacy model, and the training that some of our coaches received and brought that back. And we did some summer institutes around that with Linda Dorn and Carla Sofas. And then last year I had the opportunity to also get the training with Dorn and Sofas with the CLM, but I also specialized in CIM, which is the intervention that falls under that big umbrella of the CLM. So I did that last year, and so this year I've had the opportunity, kind of a dual role of my reading teacher role, but also some of the coaching around the interventions with some teachers in my own building as well as in another building this year. And I've branched out a little bit more just because when people find out that I'm around and a resource, then I start getting more emails and calls that people are like, oh, you do what? So it's a good thing. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Next year, looking forward to more time in this role, being able to work with intervention teachers and special education teachers with the CIM. The difference between the two, and they look so similar too when you look at CLM and CIM, is that the CLM that's our universal, that's our tier 1, that's what all of our students receive through the workshop model, reading workshop, writing workshop, language workshop, all that good stuff. All kids get that, our core instruction. That's in the classroom, that's delivered by our classroom literacy teachers. Whereas the CIM, that's the intervention piece of it all. That can also be delivered in the classroom, but it also might be pull out for students in small group instruction. It is most of the time typically delivered by an intervention teacher who's been trained in these interventions. It could be a classroom teacher, but the teacher would have to be trained in the intervention. And that's all. That's what the difference between the two. Okay. So really, what is the comprehensive intervention model? The CIM, it's really grounded in the philosophy that struggling readers need a consistent instruction from environment to environment, layered across the classroom into other supplemental like programs or instruction. It's designed to look at readers and look at their strengths and their needs and match an intervention to what they need, not just putting them in any old intervention just because that's what we have as a program. It's really deliberate in our selection for which kind of intervention we give these students. It's also based on the belief that teachers are the experts, and they're experts at observing students and their learning and what they're changing over time, what their strengths are and their needs, and then changing the instruction and possibly the intervention depending on how the student is growing as a reader and a writer. So there's a lot of importance to the teacher expertise in this model as well, and the training that goes into our teachers with this. These are just a few of the key elements when you're designing a comprehensive intervention model. I don't think there's anything on that list that would jump out or surprise you. Obviously, the quality classroom instruction is number one. You have to have that first and foremost in any sort of literacy program. All of the interventions are based off of research-based practices. There's assessment, both the universal assessment that's given to all students as well as additional assessments for students that might be in an intervention. That's all part of what we do to monitor their progress. The teacher collaboration and collaborative learning communities I'm going to come back to because that one really stands out to me as being really important elements of this model. And then the last one is the data system. The comprehensive data system is how we gather and store and review and use that data to help us make our instructional decisions for these students. The teacher collaboration piece, I think, is something that really sets CIM apart from other interventions and programs. Like I said earlier, it's really about this instructional congruency between what's happening in intervention, this additional instruction, and what's happening in the classrooms. Because what sometimes happens is you'll have an intervention that doesn't match at all what's going on in the classroom. So you have a tangled reader who's getting one thing in one environment, and they go back to the classroom, and it's completely different, and there's no connection between the two. So this collaboration between our intervention teachers and our classroom teachers in this model is essential. And it's a collaboration around the students, but also around the instruction, what theme they're studying, what is their focus in reading, what's their focus in writing, so that
we get some programming that is congruent. And when we get congruent programming, that intervention acts as a scaffold to what's going on in the classroom. That's maybe one of the most exciting things that as we're starting to embark on this, I've heard from the teachers that have been a part of it is they're doing things in intervention, and then all of a sudden in the classroom, or the teacher will tell me, or if it's the classroom teacher that's done some of it, has said, the kid was like, oh, I remember that, and making those connections from what they learned in intervention into the classroom, which that's the transfer we're looking for in anything we do. Because if the kids don't have that transfer, that 30 minutes down with intervention teacher is really fruitless. So we really look for that, that congruency between the different environments where they're doing that learning. This graphic, I'll explain it. It looks a little overwhelming, but it's okay. But what this just shows is how it's really all about, and I keep saying layering and aligning, and that's really what it's about. So I'll kind of speak from the top of this spiral on down. The purple then, that is our universal instruction. That's the CLM. Everybody gets that workshop, that good core instruction. And then the CR intervention, that is the classroom intervention. So a classroom teacher might see a student needs some differentiation. They might need more word work, or they might need some additional writing. They themselves, as like a tier 1 intervention, can add that in as a differentiation. If the student needs more than that, then we go on down to some of that small group intervention. That's where you'll have groups of 4, 5, 6 students. It could be push in or pull out, but this is in addition to that core instruction up at the top there, the classroom instruction. And that's done typically by an intervention specialist. It starts as a tier 2 typically, and if we see that needs to be more intensive, then we can go into a tier 3. So we're gonna have a smaller group for that student. It might even be a 1-to-1, which is where our reading recovery falls in this model, as a tier 3 intervention for our first graders. And then from there, we go down to the green arrows, which CIM is also very appropriate for our special education students who are in special education. It's research best practices, which is good for everybody. It may need to be differentiated in some ways, but the practices themselves and the interventions very much can be used with many students that are in special education. So you see how this works, and you layer what you need for each student, and it's going to be different for every grade level, different for every group, depending on those needs. So as far as the interventions themselves, these are the basic characteristics of all of them. Most of the interventions are in 30-minute sessions. They're going to include both reading and writing throughout each intervention. It might be one day emphasizes reading more, one day emphasizes writing more, but both of those components are in there. It's based on scaffolding, and we guide, we teach, we model, and we let go, and to see with the guided practice, that's a really important part of this. The ultimate goal being, we want to develop regulated learners. We want them to be able to learn strategies that they can on their own apply without a teacher there. So that's where the scaffolding piece comes in. And with our younger learners, those strategies are decoding and learning how to read strategies. And as they get older, the comprehension and the metacognition type strategies, we teach them, we practice them, and then we want to pull away so that they can do it on their own and they can do it in their classes by themselves. Like, that's our ultimate goal. And every intervention also has various assessments built in so that we can monitor that progress. And then these are the interventions in the portfolio. And you can see there's a variety that hit different grade levels. Some span more grade levels than others. Even though it might say it's got a writing, like a interactive writing or writing aloud, there are still components of reading within those. But as you might guess, it's a heavier writing emphasis, depending on the need of the learner. Right now, our district, as I think you've heard already about the reading recovery has come, that's really up and running in a great way in our district. Our focus has been with Guided Reading Plus for some of the training with our interventionists, because that's a real core intervention, and the comprehension focus groups for some of, for our middle school teachers have been using that. And then with the other ones, there's been bits and pieces put in, but it's a process that we really want to make sure that there's training and fidelity to understanding these interventions and not just jumping into it and saying we're doing this intervention when it's not. So we want to be very mindful of how we implement each of these in our district. So I've had the opportunity then to work this year and last year a little bit with different teachers. And sorry, it's kind of small. I don't know. I don't want to read it to you. But I've had some really positive feedback from teachers when asked, tell me about CIM. What's it done for you, for your students? And teachers have talked about, they see this congruence and how the scaffolding really does affect these students in a positive way, both in the middle school and in the elementary schools. Teachers have commented how the actual coaching cycle and the process of myself working with them in a coaching model has helped them refine their practice, and they've seen that impact on their students. And one of the teachers talked about how it shows that our district values teacher training and understands the importance of that, and that's how that professional development makes us better teachers, which makes our students learn even better. Special education teacher I had the opportunity to work with also saw some of the benefit at first. It's a lot. I mean, in the beginning, it's a lot to learn. It's something new. But then she came back a few weeks later and said, oh my gosh, she had this aha moment of, I saw this transfer from what we did in our group into the classroom, and the kids just lit up because they're like, we know this, we saw this is great. So that was really exciting to hear. And the last comment was a middle school teacher actually had students who they felt like leaders in the class because they were able to do a little bit of the work in advance and talk about things that were yet to come in the classroom. So when they went into the classroom, they were set up for success, and they kind of led a discussion, or they had answers that other kids didn't, and made those struggling readers, who are always, not always, oftentimes the quiet ones in the back, be able to be the ones that were leading the discussion. So that's really exciting as well. So that's a quick spin on CIM at this time. I don't know if you have questions or comments.
Caffrey?
How does the Sunday system fit into this, or does it not?
It is a different system. That's just special education.
Right, but
And-
the reason I ask is because you had that little spiral,
Yep.
special education, and I was just wondering if they tie in together anywhere along the way.
There's no one-size-fits-all intervention. Just like there's no one-size-fits-all instructional approach. So Sunday supplements what we're doing with literacy for students with disabilities, and it targets very discrete skills.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Baumgart.
Because you made me think of a question. Okay, Jody? You talked about congruence, which made perfect sense to me, that you can't have two different methods being delivered to the same kid from two different people and expect it to go together. How does it work across the district, though? Because we might have a kid that moves from one school to the next school, to a different building. Will what he or she has learned be congruent? I saw this mouthful.
Yeah.
Congruent from building to building?
Absolutely, just like the CLM model, and the teachers trained at Whittier are getting the same training as Summit View, as wherever. It's the same idea with the CIM. And I, right now, have the privilege of kind of leading that charge. So, for instance, recently, working with our Title I teachers across the district are all getting the training on the Guided Reading Plus intervention. So and this does happen often, if I have a student that I'm working with and that student leaves and goes over to Banting, that teacher has been trained with the same training, with the same interventions, and can pick up right where we left off with the lessons. The interventions themselves have a lesson planner, and there's certain components that need to be followed, so they would just pick that up right where I left off. Yep. Thank you. Great question.
So students that receive the intervention, do they then participate also in their classroom reading groups or not?
Oh, absolutely. Any
Absolutely.
intervention that we do
Yes.
is always in addition to their core universal instruction. The mini lessons that are given, they should also be getting small group and or conferring with the classroom teacher, and then the intervention on top of that.
So does the interventionist work with these kids during reading time or after reading time?
Most of the time, it's outside of that core reading
Okay,
block.
good.
There's some situations where if there's a 2-hour reading block, and they have it all, and it's a kindergartner who's, maybe can't sustain that because they can't, there might be part of that right, that they take it from. But generally speaking, it's outside of that block because it has to be in addition to, because we want it, it's the double dose that helps accelerate that learning.
Now, you said a 2-hour reading block. Is that all grade levels?
I just threw that out there. It's not a 2-hour reading block. It's like I don't know. Everybody sets up their reading different at different schools. So I'm just saying some schools have very small increments, like their word study and then their reading and their writing at different times, and some have a real big block all together. So it just kind of depends how their setup is. And so even within my own building where I work, I have to go on a teacher by teacher basis depending on their schedule, so that I'm not taking them outside of that core reading, and that it's an appropriate time for those kids.
So are there students that enter, like when do students enter into this program? When they're in kindergarten or first grade?
When we see from the data that there's a need for it. Typically, we don't do a whole lot with kindergartners because they're just learning school. And so we don't look at them until maybe the very end of the school year. And if there's still some concerns with students, that's when we typically would start. But most of the time, it's first grade on up is where you're going to see more of this happening.
So when a particular student enters in the program for an intervention, is it possible that that student would stay in the intervention program all the while he or she's in elementary school?
Typically, no. The idea of Title I intervention is that it's a temporary situation that we're going to ideally accelerate the learning, close the gap, get them back into the classroom, and then we monitor to make sure that they stay there. If there is a student who we've tried an intervention, that didn't work, we try a more intensive intervention, that didn't work, we'll go through several cycles, then there reaches a point where we discuss a referral for testing to see if there is some sort of specific learning disability going on. So it's not a forever thing.
Okay, so typically, it seems like most of the kids in the program are first graders, right?
For reading recovery, yes, it's first grade only, but the portfolio of interventions is any grade, K through 8. So like the Guided Reading Plus, that's typically second, it can be first graders if they're not in reading recovery, so you have first, second, possibly some third graders, comprehension focus group, third, fourth, sixth, seventh graders, we have some going on at all grade levels. So it just depends on what the need is for those students, and then we match that intervention with those kids.
Is there a leader in every building like yourself?
A reading teacher, in the Title I buildings, there are reading teachers in every building, yes.
Okay.
In our non-title buildings, there's typically interventionists, and our literacy coach helps support and set up some of these interventions for those buildings.
So there is a person in every building to provide that support?
In the Title I buildings, yes.
But not in the non-Title I buildings?
Correct.
So then what do those buildings do for support?
The teachers do it sometimes.
The teachers do it?
Teachers can provide intervention and do provide some intervention in any buildings. We have 9 buildings that are title buildings where we have title reading teachers, but our coaches or interventionists in other buildings or teachers provide these interventions.
And if
as well.
a teacher, that doesn't have an interventionist in their building, and the teacher's responsible, for this process, what happens with the other kids in the class at that time?
Well, that can look different at different places. An example is some buildings have like a 30-minute intervention enrichment block, so there's no new instruction going on, so no students are missing that, where students are getting just what they need. So it might be an intervention that's provided by a teacher. It might be an enrichment group that's where they're extending some things for our other students on the other end who might need some more instruction at some point.
That's good. I'd like to see this in action sometime, so let me know when, and I would really like to see it. I think it's extremely interesting. It's certainly is a new concept, and is this pretty common in our state, or are we kind of unique in adopting this?
There's through Dorn and so forth, the training that we received, there is partnerships in comprehensive literacy, the PCL network, and there is a PCL in Belleville, actually, where there are other districts like ours that connect to or can connect to them I know there are, like, Menominee Falls has some CIM going on, and there's like Fort Atkinson, and there's some others that are also training people right now in this model. So I think it's growing at this time.
It's just phenomenal. How long have we been doing this?
Well, last year was my training year in it, so this year is the first year that I started working with a few teachers, and then next year we're going to grow it some more. So it's pretty
So
new still.
This is not going on in every school right now.
No, not in every school right now. But
Okay.
that's our goal, is to grow it first in all of our Title I buildings.
Yes.
And then go from there.
Tell me what the result is in a student who has gone through this intervention.
I know I can only speak to like my own building right now.
Fine.
I know that myself and the other reading teacher there, who is also trained, we've been able to dismiss some students. We had some students that were in the Guided Reading Plus program as well as in the comprehension focus groups. We saw some really nice growth and success, so we dismissed them and we're just have them on a watch. And some students are in for another cycle, so it depends on where they're at in their learning. But we've definitely seen some positive results from it so far.
What's typical? Leaving the program because they've mastered areas that are in need, or is it that they stay in the program for a long time? What do you think is typical?
Well, we haven't, we haven't done it long enough for me to
Okay.
make that, judgment at this
Yeah.
time. But I
Yes.
think, what happened, like I'm thinking with a fourth, fifth grade group, with the comprehension focus group, is that I had 5 students, and I had 2 of them that did great and dismissed right away, and then I had a couple that stayed, and then I had one we switched the intervention because it wasn't the right fit. So you go through it, and they kind of shake out who needs what, type of a thing. So some kids right away, other kids, they're going to keep
Sure.
going, and then they're dismissed, and then there's one that's in it, and then she's in her own category. So
Where do you go for training?
my training was with Dorn and Sophos through the University of Little Rock, Arkansas, and then we also have the opportunity every month with this PCL, this network, that all the coaches come together, and it's across the nation, that we talk about the interventions, we talk about literacy practice, and we see videos, and we kind of dissect it all, and it's with Linda Dorn leading it. It's pretty amazing professional development for our coaches.
But students don't get this in their college preparation, do they?
Not to this level, no.
No, I didn't think so. And I think that sometimes we teach reading differently than they're taught to teach reading. And that bothers me a little bit, because then those kids have a hard time if, the teachers don't know how to do certain things.
Well, and keeping in mind that the teachers that are getting trained in these interventions are reading teachers. Most of them, I think all of them have a 316, a reading
Okay,
license. So
okay.
this isn't going to be your fresh out of college teacher learning these, because it is a higher level of expertise being able to implement these sort of interventions.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Wow. This is wonderful. I just can't imagine that this is not successful. Do you feel it's been successful as much as
Yeah,
you
I'm really
know?
excited. I'm really, really excited about it, and all the different options and opportunities and where this can go for our district. Yep.
So you've been working with kids at Hawthorne this year? Mm-hmm. And you've been...
Good results.
You feel that it's been real successful for the kids?
Yep.
Well, how could it not be? I mean, it's so specific that how could it not be successful? Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yes, Greg.
Wendy, could you highlight for me maybe some of your major challenges or roadblocks that you're facing, or what you'd like to see in the future change?
I think the biggest thing is, and one of the teachers had the feedback, is finding the time for the teacher training around this, both the core training and just learning the interventions in general, but then coming back and being able to be, whether it's coached or additional training and follow-up, that's all time. And when we make that time and make it a priority, the results are super obvious in the teacher expertise and growth, and then how it impacts the students. So that's the biggest thing, I think. And that's a difference with these interventions than a boxed program, is it takes time to learn the interventions and understand the students and plan the lessons, because you can't just read it from a script. You're planning it around what those kids need. And so we need to make sure that we stay mindful that we can't, try and just go intervention after intervention. We have to give time for that reflection and planning. That's probably the biggest need for this type of model.
Sounds like you have a great handle on it. I think we're in good hands, so thank you.
Yes, Mr. McCaffrey.
Are we rolling this out in title schools because that's where the most need is, or are we using title funds to finance the training?
We are using district funds for her training, but then our title schools is where we have the reading interventionist.
Okay, so it's not tied to the title funds, it's just that the title schools are where we have the most need.
Correct, the people to deliver it. So with this model, and what we hope to grow is with Wendy's position that she'll be able to help across the district. So she's been doing some work at the middle school with CFGs as well as other schools. So it won't just be title people who get the support.
Right.
That's where we're doing it right now because it's a process of unfolding who all can get the training. So we've worked with coaches, then title teachers, and hope to expand with teachers and special education teachers so that we can have this across the district.
So as I see that it's a special program for struggling students in elementary grades. If a student is not in this program in first grade, can the student or would a student go in at fourth grade?
At
Yes.
any point where a child is needing support, there's a portfolio of interventions that a student might need anything. So there's
Yes.
no specific entry point. The only part of the CIM interventions that really is specific for grade levels is reading recovery, because that targets first grade, that early intervention.
Wow, this is so wonderful. Jody, is this expensive for our district to be delivering? Yes. It is. I mean, I would think so. If you've got to train people, that costs money. But once the people are trained, then is there still a cost for using the program? No.
No, because the program is based, the materials that we use are real books.
Yes, okay.
So the
That you have.
cost really goes into training. It goes into people. We need to have
Yes.
interventionists and teachers.
Yes.
Those are costs that we would have even if we were using a canned program that we would have to buy and purchase. So really, it could be a cost saving in the end opportunity as well.
Wow, this is phenomenal. Where were you when I was teaching? Probably weren't born. I know. Well, you weren't born yet.
Okay. I wasn't in Wisconsin yet.
We'll have to,
Somewhere warm.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. And please
Thank you,
come back
Wendy.
next year and tell us how things are going. Okay?
we will.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Jody, we have, approval of an overnight trip.
right, so your one action item to make sure you earn your money tonight, board members, one action item is the overnight trip for West High School. That's the France trip Deb Wilgus is putting on. It's a year out from now. You should also know by now that Madam President usually looks over this, scrutinizes it, and
He
so I
sure
think
does.
you will see it's in a good place for your approval this evening.
Well, the information is more than I've ever seen.
I know.
This is phenomenal stuff. I'm assuming that this is from the organization that sponsors the trip. Okay. It's unbelievable how expensive it's getting. So do students historically, raise their own money? Because that's a lot of money.
Well, there is fundraising information in the
Yes,
packet.
I noticed
and
that.
Because they're requesting it a year ahead, they're giving the families time to
Right,
plan
right,
for it.
right.
And try to raise as much money as they can.
Right. Okay, any other questions from any other board members? Yes, sir?
We've been through this before, but with international travel like that, I've always had a concern that if something is changing in the culture out there in the world, we have to be able to get out of these situations. So we could cancel this trip without any.
We'll continue to evaluate that as.
To get closer.
Correct.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Okay. All right. We need a motion to accept this. Can we have a motion, please?
I move approval of the overnight trips as presented.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the 217-218 overnight trip request. Any further discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Well, thank you. Next, we have DPI Healthy Schools would take us into that.
Right, I'm going to have Dan Keyser, my Director of Secondary, introduce the schools that are here this evening to highlight the award winners.
So good evening. As the team gets assembled up here, just to give you a brief background about what you'll be hearing about. With the Healthy School Awards is an award that DPI puts on to help promote a way of recognizing how schools are coordinating all their efforts to promote the healthy programming, family and community engagement, and staff wellness across their system. This is an award that schools apply for. So we've had 4 schools that have been recognized this year, and we have 2 of them who will be speaking tonight. So we have Jeff Pearson and Rob Bennett to talk for some of you, and Les Paul, but we also have South and then higher elementaries that have won awards for this. So I'll turn it over to them so that they can talk a little bit more in depth about the award and what they need to do to
Great, thanks,
achieve
Dan.
this.
Thanks. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Just want to take a minute to introduce our team. I'm
Okay.
most excited to bring a parent with us to present to the board tonight. So we have Mrs. Nikki Reese, mom of Lauren and Ryan, and is kind of the chairperson of our wellness committee. So it's great to have a parent take such an active role. And then Ms. Penny Krainig, our Phi Ed teacher that I'm sure you know and love. And then Mr. Bennett. So they're taking it away now.
All right. Welcome.
Thanks. I do have a couple extra copies if you need a paper copy for those of you that are not digitally friendly. Where'd it go?
Maybe didn't log out.
First time computers.
Yeah, I'll be using the printed copy.
I think she needs an intervention.
First of all, I'm just going to give just a really brief backstory on how the Summit View Wellness Committee came to be. And I wish that we had this parent here tonight. It really came from a parent whose children struggle with gluten and are gluten-free, and always were those kids, when things came into the school to celebrate birthdays, their kids were excluded. And how does a parent advocate for something like that? And so really just starting to lend an ear to the struggles of that family. So really that's how this group of people really started to come together. And then after that, it's just a story of a journey of well-timed blessings. I'm just gonna say that.
Well-timed what?
Well-timed blessings, like always, like having the right people there when you needed it. Having a parent in our school who worked at Children's Hospital that was associated with Donald Driver Driven to Better Health. Coming to school one day, driving into the back parking lot and seeing Beanhead Farms had installed a farm, and it's just like things like that just like helps you out. So really, that's kind of like the backstory of how our group got going. So let's get this started here. Tonight, our presentation is going to go through these items right here, just how we went about setting our goals, using the Alliance for a Healthier Generation to look at their guidelines, promoting wellness in our classrooms, educating on wellness topics, celebrating in healthier ways at Summit View, encouraging our family participation, partnering with the community, and achieving goals. So these are the topics that we're gonna touch on in our little presentation here, and I promise you'll be home by bedtime. This is a tool that, I promise.
You're well, do you?
Yeah. I don't know how y'all sit down all day, because I have to get up and get moving, so I'm having trouble sitting in this chair. This is a tool that is available out there. It's Alliance for a Healthier Generation. And we use this tool to be able to see where we were as Summit View in these different areas. So when you look at those blue circles, we looked at school health and safety policies. We looked at our health education. We looked at our physical education and physical activity programs. We looked at our nutritional services. We looked at family and community involvement, and health and promotion for staff. The other two that are on there, the health services and counseling, psychological and social services are optional. And I figured I had enough on my plate. I could, if they were optional, I didn't have to do them, right? So as we took a look at where are we in our school, we were able to work on some action items to put us in the bronze level. So what I'm really working on right now is like we're at the bronze level at a national level and trying to find the evidence to be able to secure that on a national level. By the way, I need to know what a HUSSC is, and do we have it? I know, this is a difficult question for me. Anyway, we'll get back to that. If you know that, give me a call. Now I'm going to say that we are currently in line to receive another Wisconsin Award for 2017 with the work that we have done already. But right now, I'm gonna turn this over to Nikki so that she can just kind of talk about, was this one mine?
Nope, this is mine.
This one, I'm gonna turn it over so that she can talk about some of the work that we have done on our journey.
Penny, just one question before you move on. Did you initiate this in your school? The one who brought it to the school for consideration, or did it come from someone else in the building or the district?
I feel that, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, wellness committees are a part of
Yes.
board policy that we need to have those in our schools. So that level is something that, no, Penny didn't bring. But, and then really those very active group of parents wanted to start meeting regularly. So
Okay.
that's essentially our wellness committee. And just because of her instructional practices,
Yes.
she's an integral part of that.
Yes, thanks, Jeff, thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to share with you what we're doing. One of the things that I love about the Alliance for a Healthier Generation set of guidelines is it really gave our wellness committee a framework for communicating to our parents. I have a child with type 1 diabetes, and so I have a very unique perspective of seeing different foods and what happens to blood sugars and activity when he takes that, and also then seeing how really minor tweaks can make a huge difference in the overall health of a student or a child that we have at Summit View. The Alliance guidelines, what's great about it is it really boils it down to what's the quality of food that we're serving our students and what's the quantity, portion sizes. Portion sizes have gotten huge in our culture, and really the quality of that food. And so one of the things that our committee wanted to commit to is really following these guidelines to make sure that the quality and the quantity of food that we were bringing to our PTO events was something that was of high quality. When we looked at how we were going to communicate this, parents like their treats and kids like their treats. So when we first rolled this out, it wasn't a very popular, I would say, thing. Kind of the joke is, I'm the wellness witch riding around on my celery stalk, stealing all your tasty treats at Summit View. And we wanted to make sure that parents knew that that wasn't the case, that we weren't trying to, take away the fun of birthday parties or celebrations. What we really just wanted to do was make it better than it was by having healthier students. And so we were able to take these guidelines, and it gave us the whys when we were talking to parents. So when we sent out letters about celebrations, we could say the reason why we're doing this is because Summit View is committed to following the Alliance for a Healthier Generation guidelines, which the school district of Waukesha is supposed to be following. And then we could roll that out to parents. So when they came to PTO meetings saying, why are you telling me that I have to change my snack, or that these birthday parties are going to change, I can't bring in cupcakes anymore, we could say the reason is because we're following the guidelines. And then we really wanted to provide support for our teachers. Teachers have so many things on their plate as it is. We didn't want to give them more work in terms of, when a holiday comes along, or a Valentine's Day or PTO event, that they have to do more work. So our committee said, let us take some of this off your plate. We'll make the suggestions about the events. We'll assist in bringing in some of those foods. So Grandparents' Day, instead of having all carbohydrates, we're having some healthy proteins and fruits, and the Wellness Committee is going to provide some of those things. And then what do we do for parents that insist on continuing to bring in the birthday treats? We don't want the teachers to have to deal with that. So the Wellness Committee made up a special letter saying, thank you so much for your thoughtfulness in bringing a treat in the school. This is what our guidelines are. we're gonna follow this, and we hope next year you'll see that your child's birthday celebration can be wonderful without sending in food. And again, just meeting with all the PTO officers and the people who are chairing the events to say, okay, what kind of foods are you gonna serve at the event, and how can we stay within the Alliance guidelines?
Some of the work that we have done is promoting wellness in the classrooms. We also wrote a grant. Melissa Beck wrote it with Melissa Beck, and that brought some money into our school to purchase some brain break, energizing, just little quick flip open books for all of our teachers. So just to kind of notice the pulse in the room, and when they needed to snap the kids out of the glaze that has come over their eyes, you know, how can they re-engage those brains again? Helping teachers figure out how they can just do those quick little brain breaks. Also, empowering our teachers to use sources like Go Noodle or Just Dance to get some movement when they needed it. We did some school-wide sledding activities where, it was a snowy day, and this would be a really great opportunity to go outside and use our hill for a little bit and get some energy back in those kids. Also, recognizing the work that was going on already, just inherently in our building by these teachers that are just using innovative initiatives with their students and just recognizing them, nominating them, bringing their names to our wellness committee, and then rewarding those teachers with a gift card. So just some promoting wellness of what's already going on in our classroom. We also did much educating with the students on wellness topics. On our morning announcements, we have morning video announcements, and our students that are on the broadcasting crew are in charge of doing little videos, so they get this written message on what the message is, and it's really up to those broadcasting kids to bring that message to life. And, you know, they kind of write out their little skit, and they record it, and they come back, and our broadcasting people that are in charge are like, yeah, I think you need to go back there and try that again. You know, like maybe they missed the point because they got so caught up in the skit. You know, so just really giving the power to our broadcasting crew to bring that wellness to our students. We've brought in we have special lunch called Bach Lunch because we're integrated arts, so Bach's as in B-A-C-H. We had a parent come in, I believe that they were a chiropractor, and really talk to students during the lunch hour using food as fuel. So bringing in our community members during our lunchtime and allowing kids to have these conversations during lunch. We brought in Cole's Wild Theater, and they did a big skit on the Healthy Habit Hullabaloo. It was a very entertaining, I think the presentation was about a half hour, and I do believe it was free.
Yep.
They did it for free. Also, we won a scholarship for new kids in the classroom to come in, and they took our fourth graders for 5 times, 1 hour each time, and they really talked through lessons and exploration on eating and growing healthy food. And it was just a really great opportunity for our kids. Let's see, New Genesis Farms. So sorry. New Genesis Farms. And the program that they came in and did was called New Kids in the Classroom. Okay, so on to celebrating.
Sort of going back to the Alliance guidelines. So how can we take these guidelines and have wonderful, fun celebrations at the school for kids without them feeling like it's taking away all their fun? Because when you take a school community that is used to every time there's a birthday bringing in ice cream or candy or cupcakes and now saying, oh, we're going to get rid of that, but don't worry, it's still going to be a lot of fun for your kids. We needed to communicate that in some way. So what the Wellness Committee first did was go around and talk to the teachers who were really ahead of the game and had already taken the treats for birthdays out of their classrooms and said, what are you doing instead? And we compiled that list from the teachers, came up with a few additional things and said, would you be willing to do this as well? And then we were able to send a letter out to the parents to say, we're following the guidelines, please don't bring in treats, but instead, these are all the wonderful ways that we're gonna celebrate with your child. That picture right there is the birthday selfie wall. So those are kids who brought in different things for their birthdays. They might have had little games that they played with their classmates instead. Some of them like to bring in little puzzles that the kids can color. Line leader for the day, teacher helper for the day. And what we found when we started talking to the kids is they would rather do these things than bring in a cupcake. Because when you bring in a cupcake, you eat it, that's all there is. But when you get to be the center of attention and get to do something really fun and share something about you with your classmates, it's very memorable. The other thing that we did for our holiday party in December was, again, going back to trying to make it easy on the teacher. So we went through the Alliance guidelines and said, what are the types of party food that we could have that would still meet guidelines and still would be considered fun for your kids, where we have some balance and moderation. We're not trying to have the kids eat only carrot sticks and twigs or anything. We want them to still enjoy their party, but let's have some balance. Just like when we go to parties as adults, there's crudités and some treats, and you pick your healthy choices. So we came up with this menu, handed out to all the teachers, and said, the wellness committee, if you pick a couple of these items, we will go and do the shopping, we will bring it into your classroom, and we will prep all the food. And so we had several classrooms that decided to do that, and it worked out wonderful because the teachers didn't have to do anything, they didn't have to worry about what the guidelines were, it was already done for them. The other thing that we wanted to do was really encourage family participation. And activity obviously is a really fun, huge thing. So the Wellness Committee started planning family fun nights. We planned a yoga night with a certified yoga instructor who's used to working with children. We did a Zumba night with a Zumba instructor where we had everybody come to the gym, and it was a wonderful thing that families got to do together. And then we also said, well, what are some fun things that we could do outside in the community? And so we started planning a Sky Zone night where you'd have, I believe this year we had over 25 families all converge on Sky Zone in their Summit View t-shirts and have just a great family night together as a school community. And we are also going to be planning a karate night in May. The other thing that the parents decided to do was we had some parent helpers come in during lunch, and if they saw a child had healthy food in their lunchbox, they would hand out a little healthy food voucher. During one of our special weeks then, that food voucher became a rainbow. And so you could see all the healthy foods that the kids were bringing in, and then they could see all the healthy foods that they're bringing in, and it was a lot of fun for them. So in continuing with partnering with the community, last year we did an Eat a Rainbow Week, where one of our parent committee members went to Good Harvest Market and said, would you provide samples of fruits and vegetables that the kids can sample, and we'd have a different color of the rainbow every week. So Monday was beets, Tuesday was sweet potatoes, Wednesday was pepper, and so on and so forth. So the kids in all the grade levels got to taste these fruits and vegetables. They then were sent home a flyer about that fruit and vegetable for the day that their parents could see what they ate. And then at the end, we also sent around a little quiz for the kids to see how much of that information that they retained. And what we found is we had parents coming back and saying, my kid is actually asking for beets. We're making beet chips and beet fries, and we're, eating more salads, and thank you so much. So it was a really exciting way to bring in healthy foods.
I just need to interject. Don't forget Summit View has 600 students, so they sampled fruits and vegetables that week, donated by Good Harvest, cut up by parents, every single student. So
it was a lot of fun. Penny touched on Beanhead Farms. So now we have this beautiful farm growing in our backyard, basically. And Mr. Peterson said to the Wellness Committee, how can we incorporate this with our student body? What can we do with this? How can we give back to the community? So we came up with some ideas and started working with some of our Green Thumb kindergarten teachers, Mrs. Bazal and Mrs. Brooks, and started a garden club. So the garden club met once a month, September through November, with grades 3 through 5, and taught them about gardening, caring for the garden. How do you harvest? What do you learn about this? And then at the end of our harvest in November, we took any extra food that the students didn't take home and donated it to the Waukesha Food Pantry.
I just want to interject that farm also was a great opportunity for our 5th grade to do a little math project. So when the little yellow tomatoes were prolific, and I'm talking prolific, they went out there and they picked just Ziploc bags after Ziploc bags of them. They came in, and they had some other things that they picked out there. They came in and they made salsa, and they made just regular salsa, medium salsa, and hot salsa, and then had themselves a little salsa party. But in order to make the recipe, they had to do the math first and figure out how do you take this small recipe and make it a large recipe. So working with their math facts, being able to figure out, like what would 1/8 teaspoon be if you multiplied that by 10. It was just a really fun activity for them to look at. We went outside and we picked this and we did our math and now we get to eat it.
Takes care of that garden during the summer.
Summer school class that kind of helps
Part of the summer, yeah,
give a kind of gardening staff club that
okay. No, you do it, I bet you all summer long.
It's probably
The hose.
So what has all of this led for us? On the left, you see that Summit View was the top 5 out of 31 schools that won an award with the Driven to Better Health through Children's Hospital. We won that 2 years in a row. So the first year we were awarded $250 for gathering of the evidence of the work that we were doing. And then we won a second award. They made up a new award, a platinum award. So there was a top winner, and then the next 5 schools tied for this platinum award. And through that, we won another $500 for our wellness group. And really I think we won that really out of gathering the evidence that we had when we were doing the Eat a Rainbow work. I mean, because we had a lot of data from that. Then this last year, we were awarded the bronze level from the Wisconsin DPI. And so we have some other schools in with that. But also, we've been awarded some other grants. I mentioned earlier that I worked on a grant with Melissa Beck, and that brought money into our school to do some work on wellness for students. And we also won a Fuel Up to Play $1,000 grant that we were able to bring in yoga mats, to bring in ninja blenders, to bring in this world of how do you provide physical activity and health to your school, and how do you make this happen in your school. So I just feel like this has just been a really huge community awakening of people moving forward, not sprinting forward, but certainly moving forward and looking at how do we make wellness a culture, thank you, in our school community.
We found too that the kindergarten classes and some of the lower grades that have been with us now with the wellness committee really have bought into this. And we're starting to see that culture shift and change where people are excited about this stuff instead of saying, whoa, wait a minute, what are you gonna do with my treats? And that's been really fun to see at school.
As kids have left elementary school, some of the birthday celebrations and the holiday gatherings kind of go by the way, but some of the pieces that were pretty important at the middle level is promoting the wellness in the classrooms. As kids are getting a little older, more independent, and a little bit of a hypocrite of my healthy lifestyle of eating and nutrition. It's do as I say, not as I do for kids. But really promoting that in the classrooms through family and consumer ed, through health education and phy-ed. Educating in wellness topics too has been something that has spread across the building in all different content areas, and as was spoken about at Summit View, into summer school programming too. Community partnerships have been big. GE Healthcare has been a partner that we have been able to make a connection with, and they have helped us. And our staff involvement has been something that has been with wellness champions. Promoting wellness within the staff has been something that has been a big piece in our school culture. We as well have something along the lines of a garden, a central campus garden. It was created by the help of GE volunteers, and there are actually 2 gardens out in the back by Arlington Street now. One that was created over the summer, and then one that was just most recently built, cared for by our student council during the school year, and then it's a summer school project in the summer. Kids are tasked to create square footage of plant size and all of those pieces that it needs to account for, because as Penny was talking about, they plant it thinking this little seed is only going to take up this little space, and rhubarb leaves and cabbage leaves become huge, and kids don't quite understand why it's not all growing. And also the height of the fence to keep out the critters. So we've also connected with the Hope Center and the Waukesha Food Pantry, so the kids harvest those things, and then during the summer months, take that to the Hope Center and the Waukesha Food Pantry to provide that opportunity. Staff participation is increased, a Couch to 5K program, fitness challenges among staff at the middle level. We've become a little bit competitive with each other on staff, who has the most steps throughout the day, who's been the most active. I still think that I had the highest mileage per day at about 9.2 miles in one day, so that's out there to beat for kids and staff. But then the healthy choices of staff. It's not donuts, it's staff meetings. It's not those things that aren't there. It's staff bringing in smoothies. Conference nights coming this week, it's soup and salad that they're bringing in. So it's some changes in lifestyles that way. And the students have really taken it with student council, different activities that they've come up with. If we have student council events, it's not candy and soda that's sold. Those things are gone, and they're healthier options that are there. So as we move forward, it's promoting students' independence on taking an active role in their wellness. And some of the guidelines are a little bit different at middle level based on what's offered to kids and meeting those guidelines too that were explained a little bit earlier. Two other award winners, Higher Elementary and South High School were also bronze level award winners that were also part of the district that was represented.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Ballmer.
A logistical question. I'm gathering from what I've heard, the schools worked independently on these things. This wasn't a four-school combination of things. So.
Where does hot lunch fit into this? I just have to ask because, you know, there's a lot of things, and there are things in the district hot lunch program that maybe could be left out.
Aramark does follow the Healthier Generation school guidelines as well, plus there's all kinds of federal regulations that they have to do per age ranges of students that are being fed by the school lunch programs. Our conversations have started because our 18-bed garden produces a whole lot of food. How can we incorporate that into our lunch program? And they're very willing to bring our kale in and utilize some of the foods that we have in our garden that we're producing.
So Jeff, are you saying that our district hot lunch programs pretty much match with what the expectations are in this program?
Again, there's different guidelines for a school lunch program. I don't know that much about it.
Well, your
but-
kids eat hot lunch, don't they?
Correct, yes. Yeah, they meet those guidelines. They don't eat our vegetables all the time. But
That's where your cupcakes are.
That's where the cupcakes are.
No cupcakes, no.
So have the parents that prepare treats for a classroom or even prepare their kids' lunch, are the parents being careful or aware of this?
you know, that's just really a mission that we're hoping
Yes.
to continue to grow, is that we're not telling people what to do, we're just raising the awareness of what a nutritious snack can look like in school. We're starting our incoming kindergartners will be meeting with all of us this spring, and we're going to kind of roll out what our birthday treat policy is, what a nutritious snack looks like. Our wellness committee is putting together even pictures of items that meet the healthy snack guidelines so parents can send those in. A lot of times we're finding that, of course, you go to the grocery store, fruit snacks are easy and grab them and go, you don't package them or whatever, but parents don't take the time to just kind of analyze what the nutritional contents are. Our health and wellness committee is kind of taking that over and educating them. So that's really what our goals are, not to change, just bring in awareness and make sure that students are aware too, so they can start asking for these.
Jeff, how did you make the parents aware? Did you have parent meetings, or did you send home information? What
We've
did you
done we've done letters, and we've
Send
just from
letters.
our back to school orientation meetings and things like that.
Okay,
So
okay.
our health and wellness committee does a great job communicating with families.
And how have the parents responded? Do they find it acceptable?
Sure, yeah.
It depends on the parents. It's probably about a third. We've got a third of parents that are really on board and actually want us to see do even more, take even more stuff away. About a third of us are kind of right in the middle. We want that balance and moderation to really match with when these students get out in the real world, they're going to have to make these choices based on what they've learned and how they've been educated. And then you've got some parents that still want the free-for-all. They remember the good old days when they grew up and it was chips and soda and everything that you could think of at a holiday party. So one of the things the committee has done is reached out to those parents on that opposite spectrum to say, what is it that's really bothering you about the policy, and how can we get you to kind of come with us? Because some of these parents are very vocal. And so it's important to get them on board and say, we're not trying to take everything away. We're not trying to tell you what to do. We just want to promote a little bit more of a healthier culture, with kids overall. But as soon as 4 o'clock comes and your child gets off the bus, feed them whatever you want to. But in the confines of the day, we really feel it's important that the kids have the nutritional requirements that they need to have healthy brains and attention spans so they can learn what they're supposed to be learning at school.
Wow. Great.
How much more work do you need to get to the next level, the silver and the gold? I mean, you guys have done obviously a lot of work. What does that look like?
One layer is the groups that use our facilities. We're kind of trying to analyze how far we have to reach out, and whether it's just a notification of what our guidelines are, and hopefully they'll follow them as well. But that's one layer we've noticed in trying to work to that next level.
Okay.
So.
Jeff, if I can remember, I think Hot Lunch had to have, they have to follow certain policies, is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there has to be so much of this and so much of that. I do remember that. And that's still going on?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, great. Yes, Greg?
First of all, congratulations on your recognition. I think it's great to have a parent so directly involved. And I'm not surprised at your success based on the leadership I see in front of me. So continued best wishes, and I'm sure it's not easy, but you're making a difference in the life of a lot of our students. So thank you very much for all your extra work behind the scenes.
Well, and Jeff's got, what, you said 600 students, lots and lots of families there. And, I think that your parents are always interested in cooperative, but not all of them. We know that. That happens everywhere. Well, keep it up. It's great. Mr. McCaffrey.
This is just a state program? This is the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction.
Won the award in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin. Which would be the acronym that you gave us? The Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge?
I need to know what that is.
That's the Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge.
I need
Yeah.
documentation.
Gotta go to the USDA website.
Yep, so
Google it.
DPI has built off of the Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge to
Yep.
develop the statewide award.
And that's tied into the nutritional values given to us by the USDA, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if a parent does, send cupcakes despite, your practice, what do you do?
I have said we're not sending those home. Parents spend money on that. Kids get excited about it. We're not disappointing them, but we've designed a letter that said, "Thank you for trying to celebrate with us, but this is a reminder of what our
So you
birthday
send
treat
them
guideline
cupcakes
is."
back home?
No, we do not. We send
Oh.
a note that says.
Don't send them.
We package them up. The kids don't eat them. They go home with the student. They can make a decision at home with their families if they want to eat that cupcake or not. But we do let the parents know that these are our guidelines. So thanks, but next year try again. So
The teachers have lots of extra Ziploc bags
yeah.
that they send. They do, and they'll send the treats back home to the parent. Because we also have a lot of students that have tree nut allergies and dye allergies and all this stuff, and it really kind of puts the teacher at a disadvantage, if they feed that to a child that could have some issues.
Well, it's a phenomenal program, and I congratulate all of you, middle school, elementary school, for what you're doing for kids. This is really, really important, really important. So thank you very, very much.
All right, and to talk, our last item on the agenda is the student achievement.
Yes.
And so while we'll switching out here, want to introduce Becky Newcomer and the team from North, who's been doing a lot of good work over the last 2 school years. And so tonight they're going to be highlighting that work and the shifts they've been made to help improve student achievement. And oops, I'll get out of the way here because we got a team. The shifts that they have made to help support students in that growth.
This is at North High School.
Yes.
Great.
I'll turn it over to Becky, and she can introduce her team.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. We're really excited to be here and share some of our celebrations at North. I do have a team tonight. I have Emily Hernandez, Spanish teacher. Jenny Winke, she is one of our English teachers. Mike Demmel, another English teacher. Kirsten Wisniewski in physics in the science department. And Kristen Higgins, one of the assistant principals at North. So just a little background about what we're going to be talking about tonight. Of course, I could talk about North all day long, and so we needed to narrow down what our celebrations were going to be tonight. I wanted to just kind of go back a little bit to let you know how some of our data collection started. About 2 years ago, we started doing Sail Light at North, and last summer when we were given the opportunity to have a SAIL team get formally trained during our summer SAIL training, we were able to create a team to bring and really solidify that SAIL work that we had kind of started the year before. So our work is really rooted in the SAIL work, and my personal belief about leadership and also the building of a culture in a building is that engaged teachers really allow for engaged students. And there's Gallup research, there's all kinds of research out there that states the same thing. And so a lot of what you'll see tonight are teacher actions and things that are rooted within our professional learning communities and action steps that those groups are taking and decisions that they're making in order to really impact our student achievement. So when we talked together as a SAIL team and looked at all of our data, we have a lot of it, the team decided that these were the 4 things that they wanted to highlight tonight with you. So we want to talk a little bit about the reduction in the F rate among our 9th graders, the number of students enrolled in our intervention courses, the use of our current anchor charts in the classroom, and also our increase in our conferencing, which is a goal for us this year. So to start off, one of the things that we took a look at as we looked at our failure rate of our students who were freshmen, we looked at the data from the 2015-16 year and really wanted to make sure that we were going to make a dent in that. It was not anything that was very pretty to look at, and we wanted to put forth a focused effort in addressing that. So our SMART goal for our school this year was to really take a look at those statistics and, again, put forth some effort to address that. And just some numbers for you. In 2015-16, we had a total of 310 9th graders, and this year we had a total of 325. And despite almost twice as many Fs at progress report time for our 9th graders this year, we were able to reduce our F rate for our freshmen this year to 8%, which our goal was to reduce to 5%. We wanted to cut that in half from last year, but we got it down to 8, which is still an improvement. And I have Jenny Winke here tonight to talk about some of the specific steps that were taken in order to address that stat that we wanted to fix.
Hi. I'll try to talk. I'm losing my voice a little bit. I've been sick the last couple of days. But so when we initially started at the beginning of the year, there was 7 or 8 of us, and we decided that we would first focus on doing something alike in all of our classes with freshmen, so that if they were in a math class or a science class or an English class, there would be something that they would be doing similar. And so we started with Cornell Notes because that was something that we were focused on as a school. So we started looking at Cornell Notes and how we're doing it in classes, and we started pretty much from the first week on with that, and that went awesome. The kids were coming into my class, my English class, and saying, oh, we're doing this on social studies, and so they could see the tie-in. And then after first quarter, then we started to look at our grade books. And we made a spreadsheet between us 8 teachers of students who had Ds or Fs. And we started to highlight, okay, who do we have that has the same grade in our classes? And we started to see a pattern. And our first list came to about maybe 25 kids. And then we started really focusing on, now, are these kids really struggling, or are there other issues? Is it a behavioral issue? And so we started highlighting kids too, and then we decided to take on these kids on Fridays when we met for PLC. And what we did is, I have a classroom right next door to one of the other teachers who is in our group. And so some of the PLC cohort for our 9th grade met in her room, and the rest of us met in my room with the kids who really needed help. And so this way, if there was just English teachers in my room and somebody came in and was failing math, we could go right next door and say, hey, Mr. Stone, can you come in here? We need some help with math. And so we were able to pull these kids in. We called parents and we told them they need to come in until these D's or F's are raised. And with that phone call home, it went pretty fast, and we slowly made our list much shorter. I think right now we still probably have about 12 or 15 kids, but we're keeping an eye on them more than are they really failing right now. We just know that they could possibly be failing, so we want to just keep working with them so that they don't slip up at the end.
And just as teachers have SLOs, the administration and our student services team, we have an SLO as well. This year we decided to combine forces, and we have the same SLO, so we were working as a large team, and we did focus on our D and F list this year. And so we run that report, we take a look at the students who need a little extra assistance, and each one of us has adopted about 5 students or so. We call them down, give them some encouragement, and really help them to help themselves advocate in classes. It's really interesting once we start getting to know the students and helping them have some conversations, some sentence starters with teachers when they're having some difficulty in classes, so that they know how to address a teacher for some help, because some students just need that extra support. We've also used our just-in-time learning in the mornings a little bit differently, so really encouraging teachers to make sure that they assign students to come in and see them, and we do communicate home with parents to letting them know, hey, your student needs a little extra help in this area. This teacher is having them come in. It's part of their attendance. They need to come in and work until and get some assistance until they're passing their class. The next point that we wanted to talk about and celebrate tonight were our students in interventions. And we have Kristen Higgins addressing this data point.
All right. In addition to our 9th grade PLC cohort and our admin and student service flow, we heavily rely on our interventions to help with our students in reducing the F list. Currently, in looking at MAP data, teacher recommendations, and current academic grades, we have 17.8% of our students who are currently enrolled in an intervention. As Becky mentioned earlier, it's our goal by the end of the year to have that number down to at least 15%. So we are on our way. One of the great pieces of information that we have been noting is that the longer we have our students at North, the less students are enrolled in intervention. So of that 17.8%, 2% of that student population consists of our juniors, and another 2% are our seniors. So this again ties into why we're really trying to reduce the D's and F's with our 9th grade students, because we want to get them started off to a great start at North, and we know that the sooner that we can provide that intervention, the better off they're going to be as they continue on with us as the years go on. In the next slide, you can see the different interventions that we offer at North. They're listed at the bottom, very small. The bar graph on the left in orange shows the number of students enrolled in reading intervention at the start of the school year. And then on the right shows the number of students who were in reading intervention after the MAP testing window that took place in the winter. Of course, we don't have our spring data up there yet, but that will be forthcoming in May. On the next slide, you can see the similar information, but this data represents the number of students in our math interventions. Some of the action steps that support meeting the needs of our students involve our data delves, which take place 3 times a year. We have many stakeholders involved in our data delves, including teachers, student services, admin, AO captains. And the data delve process, when we first began looking at MAP test scores, academic grades, and teacher recommendations, this process used to take us a good 2 days to determine the best placement for our students. We now, in working through the process, have this down to less than half a day. So we're making nice gains, and it's just becoming something that is becoming part of a natural process. And so we are hoping to become even more efficient with that as the time goes on. Something new that we've tried at the start of second semester is we have adjusted our academic options specifically for our 10th graders. So our students that have not yet met their targeted math grade, their MAP score at the 10th grade level, we have them in what's called a 10th grade reading/content split. So for 1 week, they will receive instruction in reading based off of the ACT strands. And then the next week, they will receive instruction or assistance in a particular content area from our 10th grade teachers. We also have 4 days a week where students can come into their teacher's classroom, and we call this time all hands on deck. So from 7:35 to 8:05 each day, our teachers are available to our students. On the 2 days opposite, when our teachers are not in their professional learning communities, they are in the classroom available to students to assist. We do progress monitor our students who are in interventions every 2 weeks to determine if the interventions need to continue, if there needs to be more intense intervention. And we do regularly communicate with parents via phone calls, via emails. We also send out school messengers just so everybody is on the same page, and just in hopes of reaching our students early on and providing them with the support they need.
Another one of our celebrations is the strategy of using anchor charts in our classrooms. And we really started focusing on this when we went through the e-sale process that started about 3 or 4 years ago, actually. So this slide shows just a variety of different anchor charts that appear throughout our classrooms, and also how the data has increased. And we have Mike Demmel and Kirsten Wisniewski to talk a little bit about how it impacts their teaching and how it impacts the students in their classrooms.
Hi, I'm Mike Demmel. So one of the things I really hope to improve this year was both the quality and the quantity of the anchor charts that I use. And it's been really encouraging to see some of the gains that my students have made this year, particularly in the areas of writing and communication. One of the more useful anchor charts that I have in my classroom currently is for communication, and it has sentence frames for students to use. So one of the examples would be, I agree with student A because, and then they have to finish the sentence. Or student B makes a really good point, however, I disagree because, and examples like that are really powerful to see in the classroom when students are having a discussion, because a lot of times they provide a student with the framework and access to a conversation when they might not otherwise not know how to jump in or how to get started. So having those there for them and to see them pull that information off the wall and use it and incorporate it into their discussions has been really powerful. I also have anchor charts that make my life easier. I have anchor charts related to my beginning of class expectations, so it saves me the time of having to say things over and over, like please put your headphones in your pocket, or please put your backpack under the table, or whatever it is. So it does save me some time and makes my life easier, and it makes the expectations clear for the students as well.
And then I'm using them with my AP Physics classes right now, where we use them as more evidence buckets to summarize all of their lab experiences based on content, specific subjects. So the students will go up and they get Post-its, and they have to put Post-its on the titles of the charts. And then I go through and usually write it, so at least I know it's gonna be readable to the students that are across the room. But I leave their Post-its on there so that they've got some stake in what was put on it, and typically I don't have to add any content. It was everything that they had on their Post-it. And then we leave those up for the unit, and they can reference back to it when we start to apply that content to new problems and problem solving. And then I even have them take pictures of it and add it right to their notes in Notability on their iPads, so they can reference it when they're not in my classroom and can still see those, the same content at home.
And our fourth celebration tonight, we have our increase in conferencing. So our goal this year is to just increase the amount of time that teachers can use to be one-on-one with students. And we know that provides them with much more specific feedback and really allows those relationships to be built. And so last year, our highest percentage, as we were tracking this throughout the school year, was 13% in any given month. And this year, we've reached over 20% in 2 months. So we're really seeing a jump in that. And we have Emily Hernandez here to talk a little bit about how this impacts her in her classroom.
I decided at the beginning of this year that I wanted to purposefully plan in time for conferencing, and it was really intimidating because you've got a lot of kids and only one of me, and one-on-one means a lot of time. So I was quite honestly wary of all the time I felt like I was giving up while I wasn't instructing the whole class. But thankfully, I have learned how to do it pretty well, and it really forced me to think really purposely about what my expectations are, how I'm explaining them to the students, how they're going to show me their work, because they can't interrupt me when I'm conferencing unless if there's blood or something. But if it's just questions, like, you got to hold those or you got to find the answer on your own. And so it's really made them a lot more accountable for how can I solve this problem. And of course, I'm always there to help if they can't. But in the moment, I guess you're going to have to go to a different resource. And it's really made them much more self-reliant and much more ready with their questions when they have them. Because once conferencing starts, I guess it's off limits. So it's been really great for me to plan what everybody's doing while I'm conferencing. So that's the first part of it. And the second part is the conferencing itself, one-on-one with the students. It does build a different type of relationship. And what also I like is they can't hide behind anybody else. You know, they have learned that there will be things we talk about their progress, about their lack of progress, about their goals. And they have learned to come prepared with their grades or their work and to say, well, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm hoping to go, which is really powerful because I think as teachers, well, I'll speak for myself, I think it's my job to tell everybody what they need to do and what they should do and what it's important to do. And I've learned in conferencing to flip it and to get them to come to the point where I ask the guiding questions. And then when they say it, it's kind of a different thing than when I tell them, you know, it's another teacher telling them what to do. And so I think it's been really hard for me to zip it and listen to them more. But in the end, I think the payoff has been really great.
What do you teach?
Spanish.
We've been able to do a lot of these things because of we've redefined our faculty meeting structures, given teachers an opportunity to go to some small breakout sessions based on what their needs are. We're utilizing the adult practice framework in order to get teachers to really be able to pinpoint what it means to initiate to implement and institutionalize some of their work. And we try to get out into classrooms as much as we can. So far this year, we have almost 700 feedback opportunities through walkthroughs and mini evaluations, and that does not include some of the informal pieces that our instructional coach uses. So we have quite a few data points that we can use. This is just an example of a survey that we gave to our teachers so that they could indicate some of their needs. And we organize our faculty meetings according to some of the areas in which they've designated as places where they'd like to grow. So that concludes our celebrations, but I just have one more slide with a couple more, and those are just a couple fun facts from us this year. We have 2 National Merit finalists. We have 1 school student Cole Fellow. We have over 30 students in the 30-plus ACT Club. We are starting AVID next year, so we have 26 ninth graders poised to be signing their commitment letters at the end of this month. And we have 8 students who have met the requirements for Seal of Biliteracy, among many other things. But so those are just some fun things for us this year. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, Mr. Baumgart.
I do have a couple questions and an observation, positive observation. First of all, I got to go back in time. Academic options. When we first started doing that, I don't know, it seems like forever ago. It was a fixed thing mornings, I believe. And some of the things you talked about seem to be related to academic options, but we're doing it different now, or?
The intention of academic options when it was originally created was to be able to offer 3 branches of service to students. It was an intervention piece, it was a just-in-time piece, and it was an extension and enrichment piece.
Okay.
We got into looking at the data, and there were lots of kids who needed interventions, and we didn't necessarily have the people power to supply the other 2 branches of academic options. We're getting to a point now, again, where we feel we can utilize our resources a little bit more effectively to be able to offer those 3 branches of what it was really designed to do. So we do have students in interventions in the morning, but we do push out our 9th grade students who require interventions into the daytime. And they have courses that they take, and that frees up some of our teachers to be able to offer just-in-time support for the rest of our students.
Okay, there's a connection with that. With one of my questions was on your bar charts. I think, Kristen, you were doing the bar charts on the interventions, and in some cases, the blue line, you went through that pretty quickly, I think. In some cases, the blue line was yellow and then blue. The blue line was higher, in some cases lower. I assume that just means that you found kids that needed an intervention, and that in that passing time, it wasn't that something went worse.
And in some of those cases, that's correct. But also in some of those cases, you might see the blue line go up because the student may be moving from a tier 3 intervention down to a tier 2 intervention.
Oh.
So even though the line is going up, they're moving down on the
And that's
intervention.
a positive step for that
Yep.
child.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And thank you. And the other thing, I enjoyed your conversation about the one-on-one conferencing, and because I have a relationship with your Inspire program, I've seen what you're talking about happening over there, and I don't know if you've had a chance to work with Chris and Greta on that, on the way they do that, because you are doing some of the same things that they're good for.
Yes, I would call them the professionals. They really know what they're doing. I'm working my way there.
But anytime there's something good going on in our district, you should steal it.
Absolutely.
And do it, because, I mean, if it works for them, and then I really appreciate the fact that you found that to be an opportunity, and a positive opportunity. So I want to say thanks for that.
Thank you.
Do you expect that next year more teachers will be a part of this, or all teachers?
For the conferencing?
Yeah.
It's a goal that we have all of our teachers working towards. So
Okay.
it was really important to me. Thank you, Bill, for pointing that out. Our Inspire group does this very well, and I wanted someone from the Legacy School to be able to come and demonstrate how it's going on in all facets of our building. So Emily is one person, but as you saw in the data, we have at any given point 20% of our classrooms doing this.
And the outcome that you saw, that means the kids have to figure out for themselves, what am I going to do with this problem? That's a growth experience for those children. Absolutely. And I mean, that's just great. So I'm excited.
Questions, comments? This is, I think, very, very different tactic to be using in education. Because when I was in high school, nobody helped me. Did anybody help you, Mr. Baumgart? We have interventions?
People at my house.
At your house, okay. Well, when we were in high school, you did what the teacher said, and that's it. You know, nobody was there to help, but now, you know, we help the students to learn and to achieve, and you don't make them feel embarrassed. I think this is wonderful, wonderful, and it's going to affect graduation rate, is it not?
Hope so. yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And-
This is great. Are other schools in Waukesha doing this, or is it just North?
You know, all of the other schools, they have their celebration points as well. We do things differently. They are
Sure.
providing interventions. They have PLCs in
Sure.
their schools as well.
So this is what you're doing as part of the SAIL project? Okay, very good. Is this project, the SAIL program, is this all over the state, or is it just here?
It's ASA is the sponsor, so there are several districts who participate.
Okay.
I don't know how many districts are doing it
Yeah.
district-wide, so I feel very
Uh-huh.
fortunate in the fact that we have the support to be able to do that here.
Well, you can be very proud of your school, very proud of your students, very proud of your teachers. This is really, really something to celebrate. So, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for being so patient, waiting to be the last one. Save the best for last. Okay, that brings us to the end of our meeting, and the next meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee will be Tuesday, May 2nd at 6 o'clock in this room. Meeting is adjourned.